Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Changing Tides podcast. In each episode, we invite guests to have honest conversations about their mental health journeys with the goal of destigmatizing mental health within the Asian American Pacific Islander community. Due to the nature of the podcast, we'll be discussing a variety of mental health topics and possibly triggering experiences. While we and the majority of our guests are not trained professionals, we encourage you to practice self-care while listening and seek professional guidance if you or a loved one is in need of support. With that said, let's start the episode. Hello, my name is Matthew Yonemura, and I describe my mental health journey as... Once I finished recording with Ty, I realized I used the same mental health journey word as Cortland, which was rewarding. So instead, I'm going to change it and say, hello, my name is Matthew Yonemura, and I describe my mental health journey as necessary growing pains.
Hi everyone, I'm this week's host. My name is Tanioka, and welcome to the CT podcast. And if you're a returning listener, thanks for tuning in again. You might be wondering what happened to our usual host, Matthew. Well, for this week's episode, we decided to give everyone a chance to learn more about the man behind the show. Matthew is a new member of the Changing Tides crew, but has been involved with Changing Tides for a while now, creating a lot of our video content. With that, let's get right into this week's episode with CT podcast host, Matthew Yonemura.
Well, Matthew, welcome. Welcome to the CT podcast. How's it feel to be on the other side of the hot seat?
It's weird. I'm happy to do it. I think it'll be an interesting conversation, and I feel bad for the listener because I'm shape shifting every episode. I had long hair, I had short hair, I had a beard, I had a mustache now. We're recording these out of order, so I'm sorry, but yeah, I'm excited to do this.
Yeah, and for the listeners or watchers, you've probably might have seen one with Matthew on it so far that we've released, but Matthew really is the main host of this podcast, and this is really an idea that came out of his, and he's really running with it. So we of course had to throw him on the other side of the seat so he can experience what everyone that he's interviewing is going through. So that's why we thought this would be a great episode, so you can kind of get to know the person that you're listening to and who's kind of leading these things on. And I've had the honor of knowing Matthew for a few years now, or knowing of Matthew at least for a few years now. And, I think he has a great story to share, and he has a lot of things that I think a lot of people will resonate with. So I think, it was a no-brainer that we wanted to get you on the seat talking.
Ty, you are too kind, sir. You're too kind.
And I will do my best to fill in for you while... I don't know
You're
how I got
great
for this, but we'll see. Maybe I might not be welcome back after this one. Well, I mean, I think we can get right to it. I think, as for background, as we talked about, you're a member of the crew for Changing Tides, and so there's obviously some ties with mental health and your own experiences, and I know of it, and I think it's you've had a great story and a great journey to where you are now and have learned a lot. But for everyone else listening, can you just walk us through your own mental health journey just a bit? When would you say you first kind of became aware of your own mental health, and maybe some struggles, or when it became present, or even looking back now, are there times that you can kind of pinpoint back, hey, I think that's when I was first kind of dealing with things? And then also, just how has that understanding grown over the years of, how you interpret or how you look at and approach your mental health? If you could just kind of just walk us through kind of as early as you would like to start, and to now or to whenever, that'd be great.
Cool. Yeah. I think before I was even super aware of my own mental health, I was really lucky to have my dad, who's also he's on the intergenerational board.
Yeah.
With Changing Tides, because before I even knew what a chemical imbalance was, he was very candid with me and my brothers, and he said, listen, I had this chemical imbalance, I'm taking medication for it, and I'm trying to get better. So that was before I even really understood what depression was, what a chemical imbalance was. But because of that, it led me to being able to talk about it with my parents. But that was like a really early thing. When I was young, I didn't really get it. But my journey really began probably around sophomore year when my grandmother had passed. That was some years after my grandpa had passed, like 3 years later. But once we lost both of them, because we were really close to our grandparents, that was a huge knock on my mental health. It really removed me from being able to enjoy school, hanging out with friends. It really hit me hard, and it just continued to get worse. Um, I think it was because that was kind of what knocked the scales to cause my chemical imbalance, but because it took me so long to get help, it kept getting worse. So junior year comes around, I join ASB. We're both ASB kids.
Basically kids.
I joined ASB. I love it. I'm doing yearbook, and I met some great people there. I have good friends. I have a girlfriend. I won like homecoming prints. Like for everything seemed like I should be doing great. But as the year went along, I removed myself from my friends because I didn't feel the joy that they all did when we were at lunch or hanging out outside of school.
Mm-hmm.
At lunches, I would just sit outside my locker, which was like at the corner of campus, and I'd eat by myself. And because I didn't have the energy after classes to interact with people.
Right.
So mental health, it's these ups and downs. It got better for some time, so I ignored it. And then senior year summer comes around, doing okay. I get elected as like ASB president. I'm editor in chief of the yearbook.
Mm-hmm.
I have good grades, good friends, everything again,
Yeah.
but I still just can't get into it. So as the year starts, it's senior year. It's supposed to be this fun year of high school,
Yeah.
but I just remember not being able to enjoy any of it. Days after school, I'd sit in my car for 5 minutes right outside my house, trying to get the energy to be able to walk from my car to my front door.
Mm.
Or between classes, I was putting my earphones in instead of talking with friends. It was just tough. And then I remember the breaking point was like the first senior event. Like I'm sure all high schools, they do these little events like a picnic or just like you have all these senior year events.
Yeah. Yep.
It's the first one of the year. I remember we're all about to go into the auditorium. We're all like, this is sick. This is our first senior event. But I dreaded it. I didn't want to go to school that day. And I remember I didn't even make it to the auditorium. Everyone else walked in. I stood back. I broke down. I just I wouldn't say for no reason, but I just couldn't figure out why.
Yeah.
So it was this tough time when I thought everything was supposed to be going well, and that's why I didn't understand it. I could no longer blame it on the loss of my grandma, just because I knew that wasn't what it was inside anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So, I remembered my dad telling me about his chemical imbalance years ago. I opened up to my parents about it. I was like, hey, for the life of me, I know everything's supposed to be going well. I just am feeling horrible. I always described it as a funk, because the funk was the best way for me to describe it. As, I always thought sadness was linked to something, but the funk was just like, I'm in this low place for some reason. I can't get myself out of it.
Yeah.
So then my mom and dad, they scheduled with me to see a psychiatrist, a therapist. The psychiatrist prescribed me antidepressants, and my journey upward went on from there. I was able to enjoy the rest of senior year. My mental health, I try my best to be very aware of how I'm feeling and how to get through things and how to talk through things with people or work through it myself. So, everyone still has ups and downs, as do I, but my mental health has never been better. So, yeah.
Wow. Thank you. I mean, I think there's kind of a lot that I want to unpack there, just because, it's really interesting. I think you hit on a lot of really cool points there. I mean, starting with just the fact that, as you mentioned, and we'll get more into it later on in this, but with your dad just being so open with you at such a young age, it just goes to show that those things stick. Because like, as you mentioned, it was at a thing, and I had a kind of similar experience too, not to the same extent, but of like just remembering early on, before I even knew I was going to need it, to hearing those things and hearing that just openness about mental health, even if it was like a one conversation thing, right?
Right.
That you were able to look back on it it wasn't a time where you needed to hear it at that moment, but it was a time that stuck with you, and you were able to kind of, pinpoint and go back to that and be like, I remember my dad talked to me about this, which I imagine really did help with you being able to talk to your parents, because, even, and that's a lot of bravery on your end. I was thinking, that's so amazing that you just, after we were feeling this way, were able to just talk to your parents. And I'm sure that was part of the reason that you were able to kind of do that. But I just wanted to start with kind of the idea of, this idea of this funk, and, not knowing what was connected. I feel like that's a big thing. I think you talked about how maybe, the passing of your grandma had kind of maybe been a trigger point, but when you started to realize things weren't lining up after that, and that, like you said, there's all these things were going right. They were lined up. You were ASB president,
Uh-huh.
you're editor-in-chief of your yearbook, homecoming, all that. And then you realize, like, it doesn't make sense why 2 and 2 doesn't, why am I not feeling this joy that everyone else around me is feeling? And so I guess my question to you on talking about that was, what do you think was kind of the how did you get through? Like, I'm sure that wasn't just a few days. I don't know how long it necessarily felt like that, but what were some things that kept you going during that time when you were trying to figure it out? Like, were there certain things that you did to kind of like, try to deal with those emotions? Because, like, it was the first time you're dealing with them, you didn't really know what you're going through.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, it takes time. How did you kind of, in that moment, do you remember what like kind of helped? I know you talked about taking time before you're going back home or things like that. Was there anything else that got you through those moments that, when you look back, were kind of, your harder moments?
Yeah, that's a good question. I haven't thought about it too much since, but I know this has been for me since like junior, sophomore year of high school. Like exercise has been a really meditative thing for me. So
Mhm.
I rarely have a gym buddy or anything like that. I just like to go and work out by myself because it allows me to kind of clear my mind, and I have a goal to strive for while I'm exercising. So that's always been something to help me out. Lifting weights, whatever it might be, it's always really helped. But one of the main things I'd always do, wow, I like haven't thought about this in so long. I used to always go to this one bench in Redondo Beach, right by the ocean. It like overlooked like a lifeguard tower. I'd always go there late at night, midnight, like 2 in the morning, if I couldn't sleep, if I had anxiety, if I felt horrible and I just needed fresh air or something. I'd just go, I'd sit there on that bench, I'd listen to the water, and like in a weird way, I would just focus my eyes to try to blend the sky and the water.
Mhm.
And for some reason, it was just like a something to take my mind off of everything else.
Yeah.
So it was just a really peaceful place for me to go undisturbed and not be like in my bedroom, trying to force myself to sleep when I know I wouldn't be able to.
Yeah.
But often it would my coping mechanisms weren't great,
Mhm.
and I wouldn't talk to people. I didn't open up, and I just stay up all night. I pulled countless all nighters in high school, not even because I was always busy with work, but because I couldn't sleep
Yeah.
or I didn't have the mental capability or capacity to get work done. So it would take me like extra long.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, sometimes stuff worked for me and I was able to be really meditative and work stuff out. Other times I couldn't at all. I just dug my hole deeper.
Yeah. Yeah. One kind of story that I want you to touch on, just because, as I mentioned, or as you mentioned, your dad Jeff, he's been part of Changing Tides since the get go, and I've had the pleasure of knowing him even before I met you.
Yeah.
But I always knew you because, in addition to his own story, your story was another one that he really shared and had a lot of pride for. And I remember he shared one story early on about, he talked about, I had a son, he was ASB president, editor in chief in yearbook, and I was like, oh, that's awesome. I know what that's like. Like, that's
Mhm.
super cool. Like, that's kind of like, top dog, that sort of thing at school. And then he talked about, like that you had gone through, your depression period during that time. And I really just kind of connected with that because that's, I understood what that feels like. Like you said, it's your senior year. There's so many kind of just hopes and dreams for that year.
Yeah.
Anyways, so he had mentioned that as editor in chief of the yearbook, you did a really cool, what I think is really cool and brave, really brave thing. And you, and correct me if I'm explaining this wrong, but you kind of left kind of like a letter, an open letter, like a note to your school, just being open about you and your experience and about mental health. And, I think when I heard that, I was floored because, here I was thinking about a senior in high school understanding his own journey and his own experience with mental health and being so open with that to a yearbook that goes to everyone. That's a huge statement and a really brave one. And so if you could just tell me more about that, what influenced you to do that? What were the after effects? Did people reach out to you? Did you hear any kind of feedback on it? If you could walk me through that? I just think it's an amazing story, and I think I would love the viewers to hear
For
more about
sure. I what gave me the courage to do it was being able to talk to close friends candidly about it. Some friends, like, they noticed I was doing substantially better.
it. Hmm.
And I said, honestly, I opened up to my family about it. I accepted where I was, and I knew I needed to seek help. Um, a friend of mine told me a long time ago how he was, or his aunt or someone took antidepressants and told him that antidepressants helped her turn mountains into hills. So that made me way less scared to get medicated
Hmm.
because it sounds daunting. You hear about how these pills, like, they change people, they have these side effects, whatever it might be, but I just knew that I couldn't feel that way any longer. So basically, because I felt comfortable taking them. Sorry, my laundry machine is like going crazy. Um, but should I wait, or I'll just should I wait? Okay, the laundry machine calmed down a little bit. So basically, people noticed that I was doing better. So I explained to them how I was feeling and why I sought help. And
Hmm.
they said, "Could you describe a little bit more how you were feeling?" And I would say, I felt like I was in a funk. I kept saying it felt like a funk. I couldn't link sadness to a reason. There was no cause and effect. And people repeatedly were like, honestly, I've been dealing with that for so long. I didn't know how to describe it. I didn't know what it was. And then once, like, my close friends were realizing that, and these were all people who were like, they had a lot of friends, they were playing a sport, or they seemed happy at school, but they were feeling the same way I did.
Yeah.
And they were surprised by me because, like, I was like a spirited guy. Like, I would go to the sporting events, I've had a lot of friends, all the stuff we mentioned before.
Yep.
So when they noticed that I could go through it, they're like, oh, wow, I didn't know you were. And I'd be like, I didn't know you were. So I realized that we were all just unaware that this was going on, but so many of us were feeling the same thing.
Yeah.
So my whole mindset when I talked to my co-editors in chief, my yearbook advisor, I was trying to tell them, like, hey, I know, like, I feel uncomfortable writing about this because it's like our yearbook. I don't want to make it about me. But if we can make any impact with this, then that's great. If one kid realizes, oh, I could relate to this, I should maybe seek help. I should
Yeah.
go to a school counselor or a parent. Then cool. I think we've done our job. Our yearbook has done more than its job of just sharing a memory. So they're like, cool, write it up. Let's, it has to be a good story first. And I was like, I 1,000,000% agree because I
Yeah.
want this to be a good yearbook. So it ended up being good. They all liked it a lot. So we published it, and the reception was really good. I got a lot of messages from people younger than I, because I was a senior at the time, like saying, "Hey, I feel this way. My friend feel this way. A parent, people my grade who never would have thought I was going through something like that. Same thing. So it was really just an honor for me to be able to make any type of difference in that way.
Yeah.
And that's part of what led me to wanting to work with Changing Tides, because if I could do that by myself, then, like, who knows what a group of people could do. It could be a lot more and far reaching. So that's why like initiatives like Changing Tides was something I really wanted to get involved with.
Yeah. I mean, look at you. I mean, changing tides, right? We always are like key, I guess, phrase we always have to say is just starting conversations. And, before changing tides was even a thing, you were starting a bunch of them. And, who knows, more than you even know.
Yeah, who knows? Like
households,
yeah.
across and, continue. I mean, people might open up that yearbook today still, and, who knows what else it touches. But I think what it does too, right, is it makes everyone realize that no one is safe, not safe, but no one is, unable to be reached by mental health. And
Right.
There's no one who is incapable of struggling. Everyone does it. Like, and I think it was you're such a good figure for that, because, there are people who felt the same way you felt about yourself. Like, oh, he can't be possibly having like struggles. He has everything going on for him. He's great, and so I think that's a really cool, I guess, way of communicating that, is that, here I am, here's in all my glory, my yearbook that I've, put on, here's my letter, and this is the truth, and this is my truth. And so kudos to you, because I think that was such a cool thing that you did, and it really did impact a lot of people. I think the last thing before we move on to kind of next questions step is, you obviously talked a little bit about your kind of recovery and, steps you took. You saw a psychiatrist, you got prescribed medication. I know like that in itself is a journey. Finding a psychiatrist, finding a therapist, finding the right one. Sometimes it's not always the first one. A lot of times it's not the first one. Same goes with medication. What was that experience like for you personally? Was it kind of a journey, or did it feel like, was there intimidating parts of it that you worked through? Or just so in case people, out there are also considering what it's like and how to take the steps, what do you think? What was your journey like?
Yeah, I tell people that my story isn't everyone's story, because I got super lucky. My psychiatrist, my mom went with me just because my dad was at work, and so it's just me and my mom. And she was like, hearing her talk about it was really emotional for me. She said, he's not the happy kid he always was. And, that hurt, not because like it hurt my feelings, but just because like I the whole reason I didn't want to talk about it for so long is because I didn't want to burden anyone with my issues, because everyone's going through their own stuff. I don't want to burden anyone else. So the fact that she had noticed it for so long, like, I'm sure it was obvious, but that affected me. But when I heard my psychiatrist say, I think, or you have major clinical depression, it wasn't necessarily shocking, but it did like kind of make my stomach sink. But at the same time, it was very reassuring to know that this isn't all in my head. Like, it's not something I'm making up. Because I feel like something that a lot of us go through when we're feeling depressed is, it's like, am I just making this up? Am I trying to be sad, like in a weird way, like self-sabotage? But it's not, So, but that's a thought we all have. So to hear him say that, it kind of took a weight off my shoulders, because it helped me reassure that I wasn't making this all up and doing it to myself.
Yeah.
I was very lucky. The first medicine he prescribed was the right one. I've been on it since. No issues. I've had ups and downs, bad days like everyone, but the first month into taking medication, I was able to tell my family and my friends, this is the first time in a long time I felt like myself. And like, since I could remember, I was able to say. So, but again, some people, they go through a longer journey to find the right medication, but I think it's all worth it in the end, because you get to end up living the happier life. Then when it came to therapist, the first therapist I had wasn't the best fit. And it just wasn't the best fit, but it did like stop me from searching for a while. But it's just that first phone call of calling a therapist or calling to get help or telling someone about this stuff to get the ball rolling, and then you go from there. So it's not always going to be perfect fit right away.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for sharing. Yeah, to your point, I think it is a different experience for everyone. But I mean, it's great that you found one that works for you, and have been good so far and thus far, and that's awesome. And like you said, it's every day. You still have your
Yeah.
bad days, and you also have some really great days. So it's not the solve for everything, but like you said, I really like that line. It turns mountains into hills, and you realize you can get over these days, and these bad days are just bad days. That's what it is, and you're able to see past that. So that's really cool. I think another thing you mentioned too that I can relate to was that idea of, when you first see, like a therapist or, a professional, and they do say, oh yeah, you might have, you might I would diagnose you with this or that, it does. And I had the same experience too. It's somewhat kind of relieving though at the same time. And that's a good way to put it, is I felt that too. I remember, because it's just like, yeah, it validates you. It validates these thoughts that you've probably kept internally for a really long time. It validates why things are happening, like you said, in the moment when you feel like nothing adds up, all of a sudden things add up.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's a person that you can trust, right? You can trust, usually you feel like you can trust a professional, their opinion and their diagnosis. And so just to hear those words from a professional like that really does, I think, at least for you and for me, it was really relieving and reassuring. And then you realize, yeah, there's some work to do, and there is going to be a solution to this. I think that's totally relatable for sure.
We're taking a quick break to introduce Anchor, the sponsor of this podcast. Anchor is free, first and foremost, which is amazing. Who doesn't love free? And you can record everything directly into Anchor. It's so easy to use Anchor. That's how you are listening to this podcast, whether it's Spotify, Apple, the Anchor website. You're listening to it because I uploaded this podcast episode to Anchor. If you want to start your own podcast, I highly recommend Anchor. It's made this whole process so easy. So download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
So as you mentioned, flash forward, you were already, making waves in high school, but today, you're a member of Changing Tides, of the Changing Tides crew. So how did you first get involved with Changing Tides, and what made you want to get involved? I know your dad was already, so what made you want to take a bigger role?
So the first thing I ever did was I attended the paint night. I don't remember how the opportunity came up, but I did. I filmed the event. I was able to participate. I was able to eat the food that we had there. And I remember I enjoyed hearing the conversation that was there, but I was looking forward to doing like a little video for them because I'm going to school for filmmaking. So it was just a cool opportunity to put a little video together for Changing Tides and help out in any way that I could. That was back my freshman year of college, I want to say. What year was that then? 2018?
2018, yeah.
Yeah, 2018. So I was able to go to that. That was the first event I was able to attend. But I always knew of Changing Tides and I wanted to help out because since the first grade, I was Kenji Shimada's teammate, Cortland's little brother. And we played basketball since forever. He's one of my best friends. I knew his family knew mine, so I knew Cortland. Then I heard about Cortland starting this cool, like super amazing thing that I was trying to do by myself, like just like with a little yearbook article. But she did this like whole event, and she had a whole crew and a team, and they put on like a whole gala, like fancy clothing thing, and I was just like, that's amazing. So I wanted to see what else I could do. And and like for the longest time I just kept saying like, hey, if you guys need help with video stuff, let me know. And like I feel like there's this long back and forth of which you guys have said to me as well, like you guys were curious like, oh, does he actually want to be on crew? And then I was like, do they want me on the crew? Like, I'd love to help. And then it was just, and then finally there was like an official offer. I was like, yes, I've been wanting to. I'd love to help out. You guys are doing amazing work. And I was finally able to be on the crew, and like then we told each other like, no, I've been wanting to, and you guys were like, oh, we've been wanting you to join too. So yeah, I was lucky. I was happy that all worked out.
And for background too, you were in college in Chicago.
Yeah.
So that was the other part too. It wasn't that we
True,
were,
true,
you know,
true.
teasing you and like, you know, getting you making
Yeah, and
you
I
or anything like
and
that.
I never thought it was like you guys didn't want me. I just was like, oh, they have the team that they need. I wasn't ever like offended, so don't think I was offended. I was just like,
No.
they have the crew that they want, but hey, if they need help, I'm here for them. But
Yeah, no, we
yeah.
were like, someone who can make videos. um, well, you know, we're so grateful to have you. We love
It
having
worked out.
you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm
Wow.
grateful to be aboard.
Um, so as you mentioned before, I want to go back to your relationship with your dad.
Mhm.
You know, obviously you're just your relationship with your family and your parents have been great, and it's been a big support system. But you know, in 2020 for the Nisei Week virtual programming, we all had the opportunity and privilege to experience dialogue that you had in conversation that you had on video with your dad, Jeff, um, where you both opened up about your own personal mental health journeys. And so how was having, and you touched on it, but just can you go into more about how was having a father who's so willingly open about discussing mental health? How's that impacted your level of comfortability with the subject, and maybe how you breach it with others or just with your family? Just altogether, how has that been an impact? I know you mentioned it was a huge impact and a huge driving force, but if you could just dive into that a little more, I think um, it would be great to hear.
Yeah, it's been my dad has told me on different occasions that like I have motivated him to be more open about it, but I feel the same about him because our generation is so much more open about it in general about mental health. So to see my father who grew up in this like very like masculinity means that you suppress emotion. He grew
Right.
up in that time. Well, we kind of did too, but our generation has really adapted and been able to realize like that's not necessarily masculinity or weak or whatever it is. So
Yeah.
I'm proud of him for breaking that mold for his generation. But
Yeah.
there's a mutual benefit for both of us in that. But I growing up in such an open household has definitely inspired me to be an advocate for others because I'm one of the main things is my parents have allowed me to live such a wonderful life that if I could help people uplift others in any way, shape, or form, then I will because I've
Mhm.
been so blessed that if I could share anything with anyone, then I'll do my best to do so. So there's so many different factors and like things that intersect to why that I like my father and I have been able to try to help others. But when it came to that Nisei week thing, we kind of just put it together thinking it was, I don't know, we didn't think much of it. But then the reception we got was kind of embarrassing for both of us, honestly. Not embarrassing, it was just like a lot more attention was on it than we ever thought there would be.
Yeah.
And people reached out to us. Changing Tides was really happy with the video, so they sent it around to everyone in Changing Tides and Little Tokyo Service Center. So we were just shocked, I think. But just because, and I think that shock is because we are so close. So what was kind of normal for us was surprising for others. So I think that in itself is how I would summarize how lucky I am.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can speak on behalf of myself and others. I think, it's that video just broke an intersection of so many barriers, right? You brought it up, the idea of masculinity, right? It's a father and son talking about mental health, and one of the most maybe arguably vulnerable subjects, for a lot of people is just this ability to be open and be not strong for a little bit and hold up these walls and just talk about tough times. And so, that was one thing I think when we haven't really touched on yet, the Asian American experience, that's another barrier to it all, right? This idea
Right.
of gambate, or you just gotta get through it and don't worry about it. You just keep fighting, you'll be fine. That video represented breaking through that barrier as well and realizing, no, hold on,
Mm-hmm.
we all need help. We can't
Right.
just we can't just muscle our way through it. And just the idea of family, I think there's a lot of times we all feel very close to our family, but to your point of burden, that's a big barrier too. We figure that we're going to burden our family by being open, and being able to talk about it. But there's something beautiful from both your end of not wanting to burden your parents, but you're not, and being open
Right.
about it. And from the flip side too, from my point of view, it's amazing that your dad also is so open about it too, right? Because I think there's some people, there's this fear that my kid or kids aren't going to have the same idea of me. But to your point, it made you respect him even that much more and think of him as how much stronger, right?
Right.
Of a man as he is, to be able to actually realize when you go through it, it's actually way harder than it would be to talk about it than it is just kind of sometimes keep it inside. It's a lot of both take bravery, but you have to be brave and you have to be strong to be able to talk about it with other people. So
Definitely.
yeah. I guess to that point, you mentioned you're very lucky to have this relationship with your parents. What are some words that you would tell to other parents or to older generations out there that to help them understand our generation or to help them understand kids and where we're coming from? What are some words of advice that you would tell them just to consider that helped you with your conversations with your parents?
Yeah, I think one of the most important things that I'm grateful for to this day is that my parents still, even though they know that I'm doing so much better, they'll still routinely check in with me and say like, how are you actually doing? And there's such a big. I talked about this with Alan when I interviewed him about it's so different to be like, how are you versus like really, how are you?
Yeah.
Because it's like saying what's up. Like sometimes you're not really gonna ask someone like what are they doing. It's just like what's up, like hello.
Yeah.
So my parents actually asking me like how are you doing still like is really helpful.
Yeah.
And I think for parents I would just tell you to check on your kids at like genuinely vested interest, see how they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
um but sometimes you can't just take their word for it because your kids aren't gonna want to burden you with it.
Yeah.
So if you're open with them, they'll be open with you. So I think that's the main thing is open communication with your family is always going to be important. Just saying whatever you need, I'm there for you, and it goes both ways, obviously.
Yeah.
So just knowing that my parents were going to help me and having trust in them, that was like the main thing.
So I'm going to flip that question around, and also, from our generation and as his kids, and once you might ever be struggling through, or whose parents, maybe they want to help, they don't know how, or it's hard when you're feeling isolated. Sometimes you're feeling vulnerable. It's hard to accept help, as we've talked about. What's some words of advice that you would tell other kids or young adults who maybe have parents or older adults who are trying to help them out? What are some ways that they can be more open and receptive to it or keep in mind?
Yeah, I think when there's a few different scenarios I could think of. There's the scenarios when like your parents are trying to take care of you, but you might be hesitant about that. I think it's always important to know that your parents do want the best for you. Even if you agree or disagree with what they're saying,
Mm-hmm.
your parents are always going to want the best for you, but their idea of the best just may not be what you think of. And like, I mean, I forget this all the time. That's why I still argue with my parents now and then.
Yeah.
But ultimately, they want the best for you. So if they're trying to help you, and you're not open to it yet, that's fine. But I just hope you remember at the end of the day that they want the best for you. On the flip side, there's some parents that are very against medication for your brain, mental health type of stuff. Like it's a touchy subject depending on religion, just what you know of it, horror stories that you hear about it. In those situations, there are resources available, whether it be financial or just like online resources that you could try. But I just recommend mostly the main thing is just to hang in there no matter what direction it is. And it's an upward battle all the time no matter what. So I just hope everyone hangs in there.
Well, we shared right before we got on.
Mm-hmm.
Congratulations again. You are
Thank
finished
you.
up with classes and done with your senior year of college. That's a huge congratulations to you, a huge
Thank you.
accomplishment. But obviously we've almost been, can't believe it, in a year of this pandemic and with COVID and everything. It's kind of rocked this world and rocked a lot of people's world and the experiences that we've had, including yours, like in college.
Mm-hmm.
You were out of state. You're now back in California. How was that for you? How was that experience? How was that experience? I guess this past year. What are some ways that you were able to care for your mental health while doing school remotely and not being in Chicago anymore, being at home again, and it was a big environment change and a very quick one. So how did you adapt and how did you make sure to keep on top of your mental health?
Yeah, I think the one of the most important things was continuing to exercise even when the gyms were locked down. Like we bought, bands and different home workout stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to exercise within my apartment in Chicago or when I was back home was a huge help. But as far as all this environmental change, I try to find the bright side in everything. So it allowed me to be back in California, which meant I was able to be closer to my work with Changing Tides and also a documentary I'm working on about, a classmate of mine who passed away, which I'm still working on. And like everyone that needs to be interviewed, and just the whole project is really based back in California. So the bright sides, like the pros outweigh the cons of coming back home. And even though I loved Chicago and I loved my friends out there, I knew it was the best move to come back. As sad as it was to wrap up my college experience,
Yeah.
like I just loved being able to come back because I know, college is your stepping stone to a career as much as it
Mm-hmm.
is to enjoy. So I knew that coming back home was again the best move for my life and my career. And I don't have to pay rent for an apartment in Chicago anymore, or my parents don't have to, I should say. I was lucky enough to have my parents pay for it. So, I just try to find the bright side in all of it. And it wasn't too hard. I feel like it truly was the best move. So, yeah.
And what is the name of the film that you're working on?
The Rise Up documentary. It's about my classmate, Rise Williams. He passed away the day before our high school graduation, actually, from renal medullary carcinoma, a very rare kidney cancer that primarily only affects young black men, but that carry the sickle cell trait. So, you can follow it on Instagram at Rise Up Documentary, Rise with a Y instead of a I. Um, I edit these podcasts, so I'll tag it in the description. But
Perfect.
yeah, it's near and dear to my heart and to the Southern California community, the basketball community, and I just want to make him proud and his family proud with the project. And yeah, I'm honored to work on it more than anything. So yeah,
Well, I have no doubt that you are. You make a lot of people
thank
proud,
you.
Matthew. Um, just the last couple of things. I know we've been talking for a while, but I'll hold you hostage for a little bit longer. Um, what I guess I'm curious too is, with family have been such a integral part of your foundation and kind of, you would probably relate a lot of your help and support with your family as far as mental health. When you took the big leap to go out of state, go to college, not a few hours away, but a flight away, and several states away, in Chicago, what how did you find your support system there? How did you find a new support system? Obviously, I'm sure you still talk to your parents and have them, to talk to and confide in. But as far as just physical space or groups that you had, how did you find a new support system? Just because I know, a lot of young adults, we are moving around, we're moving different places, and sometimes we have to find different ways of finding support. So, what did you do to help that?
Honestly, I because of uh, high school and the emotional draining, like how emotionally draining it was to go try to be happy for people, but at the
Yeah.
same time, like knowing how I was feeling on the inside, I became super introverted for like, I still am. Like I really need my alone time. So all of my friendships happened pretty organically. I didn't join many clubs. I just talked to some people in classes sometimes, or I would go to the gym often, so I see people there all the time. But a lot of my friendships happened, they formed in classes, or I actually started working at the school gym, so I made a lot of great friends there. I just think you have to kind of experience life, and through different places you put yourself in,
Yeah.
you develop these new bonds that are can end up being lifelong friendships. So I was very fortunate to find great people that I worked alongside at the school gym. And then I also worked at a cafe for a little bit of time, and they ended up being my future roommates for a year. Uh, it's you could find commonalities that you could share with people, and I think just by putting yourself out there, um, you're able to form these support systems that and then because I felt I am always pretty much an open book when it comes to my mental health or whatever it might be, it allows people to open up as well. So it's just another reason to be comfortable with discussing and being honest with who you are.
Yeah. I mean, and it, like to your point, the more conversations you have with these people, the more you do end up connecting.
Yeah.
And we've done Changing Tides has hosted cafes in the past where we've met new people every week, and we find connections just within that hour and a half or 2 hour period. It really is kind of a connecting force sometimes. Mental health. I guess the last question for you on this main part, as someone who's into filmmaking, and I've seen your Instagram, I've seen you're in it, you're hip, you're with all the trends, and on TikTok, there's TikToks, people, there's mental health TikTok, right? There's people talking about mental health on TikTok. There's people talking about mental health in on screen, on the big screen, in movies now, in film, and celebrities are now being open about it, and we're seeing this rise. I think we're, like you said, we're in a generation that is talking a lot more about being open and being vulnerable. We've come far. Where are there parts that you think we can still continue to work towards as a society, whether in mainstream media or just in resources at home or at schools or anything like that? Where do you feel like we can still invest a lot of time and efforts in? Because I think this is still a journey that we still definitely need to support and work through.
Yeah. Well, first we need to defund the police and hire mental health professionals to deal with mental health crises. So that's a big one. As far as like in media and stuff, I think there's these great leaps that are being made. My concern is how much of it is being tokenized.
Mm.
I love that there is this change, but I am curious as to like for example, the Oscars. They're starting, I think, in 2025. They have these new rules in place about you have to have so and so many people of color or members of the LGBTQ plus on your production team or on screen. And I think that's great. But at the same time, how much of that is honestly trying to help others, and how much of it is for the sake of appearances? So I honestly think the main thing is genuinely caring about people, like, and in every way, shape, and form. That's how you make these changes. If you have genuine care for your students in a school, you're going to have more counselors and support systems there. If you genuinely care about the people you're employing, then you're going to make sure that you have like mental health sources for your employees.
Right.
Whatever it might be, when you genuinely care about other people, that's when you're going to be able to make changes. So I think that's the main thing, honestly, whether it be film, school, athletics, that's like Kevin Love and DeMar DeRozan, when they opened up about it, that forced the NBA to actually make changes as far as having sports psychologists on staff.
Yeah.
So they genuinely cared, and I think that's where it all is rooted in.
Yeah, no, perfect. I think you're right on that one for sure. I mean, I think the authenticity of it really is what you mentioned is kind of a huge part in there, and being just intentional with what we're doing. And I think as long as we're inspired by the right things and are moved to do things for the right reasons, that's gonna obviously take us to the right place. Before we go into this new dreaded quick fire round in Korea, is there anything else that you wanted to just say or share? Yeah,
Um,
we talked a lot, but I wasn't sure if there's anything else you wanted to hit on. Otherwise, get ready.
I'm sorry for rambling. I know this is kind of a lot. So I'll have fun editing down
Yeah.
whatever I rambled on too much. But no, I'm just really happy to be able to share. And hopefully, I just hope that whatever I had to say helps someone. Um, and yeah, that's the whole thing. I just hope everyone has genuine care for other people. And yeah,
Alrighty. You ready?
I am ready.
We'll shoot a few. You'll get
Whew.
it through.
Okay.
We'll start with the easy one.
Okay.
Um, what should be an easy one, I would think, is what is a film that you can watch over and over again and not get tired of?
The Dark Knight, um, Inception. Oh, you only said one. I'll just go with the Dark
I
Knight.
mean, Dark Knight. All right. Perfect. Did you do the Spotify end of the year wrap?
I did.
And who was your top artist of 2020?
Oh, for 2020? Oh, who
Yeah, the
was
one we just
it?
finished, right?
I think it was Frank Ocean.
Frank Ocean. Okay,
He's always up there, but I think he was the number one of 2020.
gotcha. Nice, nice, nice. You're a dancer. What self-proclaimed dancer will say, I've seen on Instagram lives, whatever it is, Reels, TikTok, maybe I'm not on it, but what would you say is your go-to dance move?
Okay, so let me clarify. So I have downloaded TikTok so I could use the filters for it, but I don't have a TikTok either. I don't think you'll ever catch me using a Reels. Triller is my app. Triller is the
Okay.
app to go to.
That's right. That's right.
How do I just, I'll try to describe it for the audience listening, but I'll like throw it up with my one hand. I'll catch it and I'll like flex it down. I don't know what you call it. I think it's called like the hidden folks or something. I hate the name for it, but it's just like so easy to just like throw it in. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think you're an introvert. I don't think you're an introvert, actually. Yeah, for those of you who are just listening, you had to have seen it. It's a good one.
So I'm not a dancer. I like to be
Someone
goofy on my
enjoys
social
dance.
media. Yeah, exactly.
Um, if you can invite, let's say three to five people,
Okay.
if you want to give more, to dinner, dead or alive, who would it be?
Kobe, LeBron James, Frank Ocean, my dad. I have dinner with my dad all the time. He gets it.
Sorry, Jeff.
He'll understand. Um, Gosh, that's tough. See, I asked this and I had an answer ready, but now when you ask it, it's just floods. I lose it.
I mean, I'm sure there's plenty to talk with those three.
Hold on, no, I got it. I could do this. Oh, Florence Pugh. I am the biggest Florence Pugh fan. I just she's a goddess among us. Um, and Sabrina Ionescu. So she's a hooper,
Yeah.
and to see her and Kobe talk again, and I would love for her to catch up Kobe on her now being in the WNBA. I would just want to be there for that. So yeah,
Solid choices. Solid choices.
thank you.
That was pretty quick too. I don't know if I would put mine together.
Thank you.
Okay, last couple. If you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Hang in there.
Nice.
Yeah.
And
Wait, I'm so sorry. That's so bad. That's so like.
Okay, let's reword that one. If you could give your younger self like another piece of advice,
Okay.
on top of hang in there, what would it be?
I would say to take any opportunity that comes your way and give yourself more credit.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think we could all hear that. So we hear that. Flipping that on the other hand, what is one thing that you hope your older self will never forget?
To have fun. I feel like so much of what I am fascinated in and like pursuing film is like doing the stuff I enjoy. So I just hope I don't like become boring or do something I don't want to do. Like I just hope I continue to always have fun.
Yeah, I'm sure older Matthew will be throwing those dance moves.
I really hope so. I hope he has a Triller still.
And last quick question, last 5 round question. What has been your favorite small business that you've been frequently lately to support?
Oh, what a beautiful question. Kirari West. It's on PCH. I don't know the cross street of that, but it's in South Redondo.
Okay.
It's this little family-owned Japanese coffee shop. They have like the strongest, most amazing cold brew it's right by like the Redondo Beach post office.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, they have a good reward system, and their baked goods are so good. It's gluten free. Kirari West is just like my favorite little family owned business to support right now.
Awesome. I'm gonna have to check that out.
It's so good.
We'll make you figure out how to tag that somewhere
Okay.
in the
Definitely.
all support. But no, I mean that wraps up the 5 round. That wraps up our podcast. I mean, for everyone listening, I think everyone can probably tell now why, we think you're just the perfect person to lead these podcasts, because
Oh no.
you yourself are always on the other side. But I'm glad everyone's going to get a chance to hear your story and just understand why we value you so much as a crew member, and what kind of, impacts you've already made and will continue to make. So thank you again, Matthew, for hanging in there with us and being on the other side. And for all you listeners, please continue to listen to all the podcasts, because Matthew will be on them, interviewing some really great people. We've already had a ton of awesome people participate, and we have more I know to come. So,
and Ty will be interviewed too. All the crew will be interviewed, so don't anyone worry. You'll hear more from Ty.
I'll be ready. I'm ready.
Okay.
Thank you again to Matthew Yonemura for joining us and sharing about his mental health journey. If you enjoyed this episode, you can subscribe to our show for our bi-weekly episode releases and give us a rating or review on your favorite podcast platform. If you would like to support our podcast and help us grow, you can do so with a donation to the link at the bottom of the episode description. To hear more about Changing Tides, follow us on our Instagram at LTSC_Changing Tides, or check out our website, thechangingtides.org. Let's continue to change the tides on mental health.
Yeah.